what is your view personally? As I'm now not asking as the founder, co-founder of Darwinbox, but as Rohit, is an HR, is a CHRO, HR manager, HR function, etc., required for an organization to be of a mid-size or a small-size organization to be successful, or is that a scale thing that it stands to reason that as organizations get larger, you do tend need to have people who can handle that scale and manage it better.
See, two reasons I'm very bullish on the HR function is I've seen the upside of having a great HR person, Rohan, right? Like somebody who's thinking
That's
about
a great point, because this is so hard, right? Because it's like, how do you judge the absence of someone when you are unable to see what presence can do to the organization?
Exactly.
But give me an example of what
the expectation from that HR person is also, right, like is limited in some context, right? Like because of maybe past experience with a certain HR person. See, I think, right, having a very good top talent program across the organization is nobody else's mandate except the HR functions. Right? I as a manager will know who's better for me, etc. You as a manager will know yours, and there'll be a bunch of people across functions. But is there something that I'm doing for my top talent within the organization? And there are a bunch of examples of great organizations who've done more in terms of ESOPs, more in terms of touch points, learning, etc. for my top talent, because maybe I want to reward them disproportionately. Because your top 20% talent almost defines how good or bad the company is, right? Like, so
Sure.
That, for example, is something which only HR can do. Very rarely I've seen any other function taking that up and delivering on it, even if it is a CEO
Because
agenda.
most of those functions, each function will have its own siloed view.
Correct.
Right? No function has a org-wide view.
Yeah, and also it helps for mobility across functions, etc. So, I mean, that is one example that comes top of mind. But even thinking about, for example, performance management, thinking about how do you think about compensation structures, right? Oh, right, I'm not able to afford somebody early on. Can I do some thinking on how do I combine this with ESOPs or a long-term incentive, etc.? Is a more experience play, right? It is not just saying, hey, I mean, my math works out, this you'll get this more, because translating that to a good communication to the potential recruit again is a big upside in itself. What I can tell you more interestingly is every second time founder hires a good HR person much earlier than they did it in the first stint. Because they realized that it was delayed, including us at Darwinbox. We always thought, oh, we have our own product. We don't need to have an HR person. And we were delayed in getting a very good HR person on board. Right? Most founders, and I've seen this consistently, second-time founders hire an good HR person much earlier. Because otherwise, they only look for like an operational person who can just do the job early on. So I think that again is proof that people have seen the upside of a good HR person. It's just not consistent across the market.
Right. Switching now from HR to you and your career, do you have a view on what does it take to finding and succeeding in a career that you can enjoy for decades?
Wow, this is like a ikigai level question, but
I mean, I'm sure like at some level you found some version of ikigai, though like all founders you will have this, that there is more to be done, but that's an ongoing thing.
See, I think two parts to that answer, Rohan. So I think one for me, as I told you, right, while at McKinsey or around that time, problem solving is something that I'm very, very excited about. Right, and like every pro has its con, right? Like when you're very excited about problem solving, the boring, like the everyday stuff or transactional stuff gets very boring sometimes, which, right, to find enjoyment or excitement to do that takes effort. So for me, I almost frame every context as a problem to solve for me to start enjoying it.
Can you give me an example?
Right, even a review that I'm going into, I take 10 minutes out before the review, saying, right, looking at the data or anything, saying, oh, is there a problem here that I can solve, so that I'm going deeper and deeper and deeper and trying to solve that problem or finding that problem and seeing if I can do things at scale and leverage something out of it, rather than go into the review and hope to be, right, either amused, surprised, or, right, like just go through with it, right? So I think that for me is something that I need to operate. So knowing myself that I enjoy problem solving, if I want to enjoy a review, which happens every week or every month, I do a little bit of work before to understand if there is any patterns, etc., or push for understanding those patterns as I move on. So I think that for me works very well. Second, for me, I think I need 2-3 different kind of problem statements in a day rather than just one thing. And I'm not into that deep focus mind that for 24 48 hours I'll do only one thing.
Got it.
I need a context shift so that I can come back to this with a fresh mind, the same problem after a point of time.
How does this translate to, say, some of the younger folks in your organization and coming to you and asking you for career advice? This thing that you said right now, how does it translate to someone who's 25? What does this really mean? What are you telling them?
I think the first thing that I'm telling them is understand what they enjoy, right? See, for me, I think again one big realization was I thought doing great startups or being successful in startups is all about intelligence. Like, I mean, never been
It's not. It's
proven
not,
more
no.
wrong, right? Like, it is about
How?
resilience
Tell
a
me.
lot more than
Huh.
intelligence, right? It's not about. I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room, or all the founders that I met are the smartest people in the room. They are the most resilient in the room for sure, right? Which is being at something, doing it over and over and over again, right? Taking different contexts, coming up with solutions, right? Breaking the wall till you hit your head to it and then break it, right? Sometimes, right? You can say, hey, you can be in every situation. You don't have a smart answer on go around the wall, right? Like that situations
Yeah.
don't exist, and sometimes it's just about repetitions, etc. And in a lot of those times, you don't have any chance of using your intelligence, right? So it is not the smartest person in the room. That's my biggest realization, right? I think definitely I thought a lot before I started a company that starting a company or running a company is about intelligence, right? If you're really smart, you'll be able to do this. It's some bit of intelligence, but a lot more about energy, resilience, and being at it than intelligence. So if I go back to say, hey, right, are you looking for opportunities? If the 25-year-old comes to me, if you're looking for opportunities where your intellect is challenged every day, right, to a certain level, maybe this is not the right profession, right? Maybe consulting is the right profession, research is the right profession, etc. Or if you're excited by impact, right, then there is a lot more large scale things and functional roles, etc., that you can do. So it's a lot about what you
So
are
what
looking
would
for.
that be at Darwinbox? What the people who work at Darwinbox, what keeps them, what brings them to Darwinbox, what keeps them at Darwinbox?
I think the varies by function also, right? Like there are different roles within.
Broadly, at a cultural level, at an org-wide cultural level.
See, I think they should enjoy being a team player, which is helping each other out. So one thing that I always ask in my exit interviews is what did they enjoy about Darwinbox and what did they hate about Darwinbox whenever I get a chance to do an exit. Most people have enjoyed that at any point of time in the day or the night, when I said I have a problem, there is somebody trying to help me. Whether they are able to help me or not, I don't know. But there's somebody trying to help me because together we feel like one team, right? One Darwinbox.
How did that culture come about? It's not a default culture.
It's not a default culture, but I think it was not very intentional also. It was very early on us trying to, and I think whenever you have this, you taking on a larger competition, something comes together to make that happen. And right, I mean, we spoke about I think prior to the conversation on the whole delivery experience, right? So some of these early customers where you're at the brink of losing that customer, you're at the brink of failing at that customer, but the whole organization comes together.
Tell me about that. We never got much into that. Delivery was one of your first
Yeah.
enterprise
I
customers.
think
Was
your
it
question
Sahil?
of
Because Sahil was on First Principles a few episodes back.
no, Sahil is fantastic. So I think the delivery story, just the context of the delivery story is like you said, right? You never get fired for buying an IBM. The people that were open to looking at Darwinbox as a platform were more the startups because they saw the narrative working out. They were the guys who were the ones who were competing with larger players.
And they're more incentivized by taking risks in favor of opportunities.
Correct.
Rather than being conservative and don't rock the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they hire such people. Those people take such decisions as well. So I think our early bunch of customers were all tech and startup companies. And the largest of that lot, right, was delivery. And delivery, again, because it was already 20,000 plus employees, very large, etc., right? The who's who of the world, right? SAP's, Oracle's, Workday. Everybody was knocking at their door. So we went to present and they said, hey, you're eliminated even before doing this. And I happened to know Sahil through a friend. So I went to Sahil and said, Sahil, give us a chance. We want to present. Sahil said, hey, I'll get you into the room. I'll give you a fair chance. Right. And you know how structured Sahil is. I'll give you a fair chance. Don't come back to me after that for taking a decision. Right. My job is to give you an equal opportunity. And then when we went into the room and spent time and they gave us the time because the CEO said, give them the time, they realized, right, none of the existing systems will work for that complexity. And because they were also very evolving organization in 2015, right? Like they were growing quickly, pin codes were increasing, number of e-commerce players were increasing, customer mix was changing, etc. So we went all out in terms of our presentations, pitch. We were almost bunking there, right? Like in terms of our sales pitch, etc. Me, Jay, and Chaitanya, all three of us were there. Chaitanya was drawing.
This is Delhi Gurgaon back then.
This is Delhi Gurgaon. In Gurgaon, right?
Yeah,
in Gurgaon.
yeah.
And we know the office very well. We know the chai walas very well outside that office. Chaitanya was drawing things on the board of the modules that were going to come, right? We didn't even have all the modules at that point of time. We just had that first 4 modules. And I think in that process, once we won the deal and they were impressed and they saw that this is something that they would go with for a long time. Once they were impressed, we started implementing. And till that point of time, the largest customer I think we implemented was 1,000 employees.
And this was 20,000.
This is 20,000, right?
And
we
a fairly diverse.
Extremely diverse. Right? Because, right, anybody who goes into thinking about HRMS thinks, okay, there are X number of people
sitting in an office in front of computers.
And X number of departments and X number of locations. So, for example, the simplest thing I'll tell you is locations was a drop down in Darwinbox.
Okay, I know how ridiculous that sounds.
Yeah, and then there are 3,500 locations in delivery, right? Like and bunch of
such things. So you have to
things.
change it into a text box where you can enter.
Yes,
or something.
Right? Like the drop down search box, right? And we had one page, for example, where you can actually scroll through all employees. And these are 20,000, right? What happened actually was they were going to launch like 2-3 days and the system was not loading. And we were like, because they sent out an email and it's 20,000 employees saying new HRMS is coming, Darwinbox is the new thing, it's the coolest thing that can happen, etc. Then I had to fly down to Sahil and say, Sahil, I mean, we screwed up. We don't know. I mean, we didn't know, right? Genuinely, it was a team of 12 people at that point of time, right? Like we didn't know what to do.
This was what, 2016, 15?
2016. 2016, right? Before the funding happened also. This was like, right? So we didn't know what to do. We were figuring out, we were scrambling. I was calling up all my friends from engineering, from Google and saying, what do I do, right? Like, how can I solve this quickly? Everybody was calling everybody. We were trying to figure out.
What was the issue?
No, multiple issues. It's just a scale problem, right? And,
Got it.
And for every scale problem, there is a solution which comes with experience. We were doing it for first principles and we didn't have time. See, we knew we would solve this. But the problem was the announcement was done, etc. So we went and said, hey, right, like we screwed up. Right? It will take you 15 to 20 days to find another platform. Right? We will fix this by then. If we don't, we'll help you implement the new platform that you take. Whatever is the platform, think of us as bodies. We'll implement. And that 1-2 weeks, Rohan, none of us slept. That 11-12 people didn't sleep. Right? Everything was being solved for. Open the problem statement, solve. Open the problem statement, solve. Call up whoever you need to, etc. And when you come through that, the first 12 people in the organization, and then you take it.
You have to like re-architect or rewrite.
You have to re-architect search. You have to re-architect databases. A lot of things, and all happened in 10 days.
You mentioned, databases. One of the things that came up, and help me understand this a bit more, right? Darwinbox, one of the atypical choices that it made from its technical architecture was to use GraphDB. Tell me why. Assume I know nothing. Actually, I do know nothing. So it's not that, like, I mean, what is GraphDB and why was that such a different decision that you made, and how did it impact you?
Okay, so see, I think one of the things that I told you about the fundamental problem of best practice is that organizations are always shaped in a certain way. There is an assumption. So there is a SQL database. Yes. SQL is a relational database, which is corresponding to every person. There is an attribute, right?
So you can think of it as a large collection of rows and columns.
Exactly.
You look up a particular row and column.
And then you have a box, right?
Right.
But when you think about organizations in general, and organizations more at that point of time and even today, they're very, very tree-like. Right? There is a reporting manager, there is a dotted line reporting manager. So You report to the India head.
So your point being that no organization can try and guess all the columns that it needs in a
So
database in
there are 2
advance.
points. One is you can't guess all of it. Second, you might have two overlapping
Right. I may
contexts.
have I may have two dotted reporting managers.
Correct.
So if you only put one column in the database, then you're suddenly wondering. And this is something that we've seen in software, right?
Correct.
The field can only take one value.
One value,
You
exactly.
cannot enter
So
more
for
than
example,
one.
I'll give you a classic operational issue with this. When you do performance management, right, you want L1 review, L2 review, L3 review, right?
Or 360-degree reviews.
Or 360-degree review, right? But suddenly you'll have this dotted line manager as a part of the process. Now, where in that table do you pick this dotted line manager from and bring into the process is an unknown in a relational database, which means you need to keep on adding columns and predefine columns saying there will be 900 or 90 or 9 managers.
Which slows down the database eventually.
Which slows
and
down
kills
the database. And also you need to be pre-planned about it. You can't create these positions on the fly. What we realized was as you build out workflows, as you build out org structures, etc., right? Tomorrow you might have a shared services model which operates for 10 legal entities, etc. None of this will work in a relational database model. So we took the atypical choice, and graph database has its own risks with it, which is, for example, right, in a relational database, everything when it comes into a report is very straightforward. Take this column, and this row, this row. When you transpose a graph DB into a report, it's a lot more difficult to translate that to a report which is readily available as a standard report, right? So it is more work, more compute, etc. But we took that call very early on. So a lot of our technology and product architecture choices were to say, hey, the product will be flexible for the future, right? That is adaptable, which is again Darwinism, and which is it'll help evolution. I mean, the product itself will evolve and help organizations evolve. Became the story.
By the way, I
behind
must tell you this. This entire conversation also reminds me of the conversation I had with Sahil when he was describing how delivery started figuring out how to do route mapping, etc., and all that, and they loosely modeled it on the way telecom networks and IP traffic travels, etc., and all that. So I see a lot of those parallels on how early first-time startups that are trying to solve huge complex problems have the space to approach it afresh, because you're not already tied into a legacy database and you're thinking, oh my god, we already have this code base and what do we do with it? So, but to come back to delivery, what happened? Everything went off.
So just to finish off that point, Rohan, right?
The graph
I think
DB point.
The graph DB point, or many of the architectural choices were not easy choices. The relational database choice always will be the easy one because it's been tried and tested and you can just copy it, right? GraphDB meant you need to do your own research to figure out how it translates to every process in HR, etc. Similarly, a lot of platform choices, right? Like for example, we could have built a performance management quickly. We said we'll build a workflow builder, and on top of that, performance management. So that tomorrow, if performance management changes significantly in the future, I don't have to re-architect it. I can use the base workflow builder to make a new performance management architecture, right? So even today with AI, we are exactly doing that, which is I am giving a technology layer for all my pods, which run different modules, to use AI to build whatever they need in terms of agents that is relevant for their workflow, right? So again, so that was a more of a choice which was tougher early on, but helped us scale much better. Coming back to delivery, I think the whole experience of coming together as a team, which helped us solve something which we thought was gone, right? Like against the odds, was completely destroyed, right? Would have destroyed the company. We would not be an enterprise company if delivery walked out of us at that point of time. And I think that allowed us to believe that if we come together, and there was no team member there, right? Like there's no function there. Everybody was doing everything. And that belief continued in the ethos of the company, right? There are many contexts after that where the impossible we've attempted and solved for because everybody came together. And in some way, that everybody coming together when there is a problem or when somebody is in need is something that's stuck as DNA for the org. So I think that's something that resonates with what it means to be a Darwinian or be in Darwinbox very, very strongly, right? But also there are subcultures within each of the functions as well, right? Like there's a product culture, there's a sales culture, etc. But I think for me, my biggest learning over the journey, Rohan, was we had a bunch of values, etc. And I always used to wonder, McKinsey had this core value, McKinsey had only 2 values, right? And for a consulting company which is 100 years old, teaching companies frameworks and everything, everybody seems to have 6 values, 7 values. I used to keep wondering why they have only 2. And I realized that's what we stood for, and went back to the same set of 2 values, which is do right by your customer, do right by your teammate. Right? It oversimplified it, but I didn't find a better articulation of what we wanted to do as an individual, for myself or for the organization. If you take care of these 2 things, everything else somehow fell in place.
Got it. Okay. What's you were talking about culture at Darwinbox. Let me ask a kind of counter question to that. What sort of people won't succeed or don't succeed at Darwinbox? Like they join, but they're out in 6 months, 9 months, less than a year.
See, I think the what because it's a B2B and enterprise business, what people assume is that decision making, etc., right? Like, or everything happens at a very enterprise levelish, which is like sophisticated in language and sophisticated in value selling and all of that. And I think that's where maybe we unfortunately attract some wrong talent, which is they assume, right? Coming from a certain background, etc., they assume, okay, I've sold this in SAP. How different will Darwinbox be? I've sold this in Oracle.
What is the primary difference?
I think we are very product led.
What does that mean?
So
I mean,
think,
because from a layperson's point of view, I might assume that I'm sure SAP is also product led. So when you say you're product led, what does that mean in terms of a difference between a large enterprise?
No. I think it's a very interesting one, even for us when we reflect on, right? I think if you go to an SAP sales guy, an Oracle sales guy, 90% of the sales process happens on a PPT. Right? Which is SAP has done this in 200 organizations.
This is the value. List of feature after feature.
This is the value we've driven, etc. We go in, and maybe it comes from a little bit of our consulting background starting. We said, what is your problem? Right? Let me configure this and show it to you now.
Let me configure you're this like the show don't tell types.
Correct. Right? And a lot of success within Darwinbox has been people who've been able to do that. Who get that and show and don't tell kind of thing. And for all the success we've got in B2B, there is rightfully people might assume that we are more tell, etc. And people who come in and are not very familiar with product. I'm not saying they should be fluent, but they should be comfortable with product, right? Comfortable with tech, right? Ready to open the product out, ready to open the app out to show a customer, etc. People who are not comfortable with that struggle.
So it's also a little bit of roll up the sleeves and get
roll up the sleeve is the detail part of it. But just I think the product centric thinking, right? And a lot of times I ask what is their favorite app, how much they use it, etc. Like just to see how comfortable they are with technology and product. In my interviews as well, even at a senior level, I just ask, what have you done? Like how much have you played around with the tool, technology, etc. Just to be comfortable with that idea.
Since you brought this up, let me ask you, what are some of your favorite open-ended questions that you ask while hiring?
So if I like the candidate, I definitely ask, if I give you an offer, what are the top 2 reasons you won't join Darwinbox? Just gives me a sense of their priorities and how much research they will do before joining Darwinbox. So I think that's one question I ask. A lot of times it gives interesting things where I can pitch the role to them, or sometimes it gives me interesting perspective on what they look for when they join Darwinbox.
What else?
The second thing I ask is, I ask the money, power, fame question. I ask, especially at leadership, on saying, if you didn't have the other 2 and had only one, what would you pick? Just to sense if that role can give them that. Right? So it's nothing. None of them is the right answer, but more in terms of there are roles which are not famous, right? They're not out there. There are roles which are not very incentive driven and money driven.
In some senses, these are still bound questions, right? Are there any open-ended questions that you ask? Like, for example, one of the ones you shared earlier was, what apps do you use, right? Which can go anywhere. Any other such open-ended questions that you ask where you're just trying to understand, whatever responses they're giving, just to kind of understand them better?
Mine is a lot more of my interviewing is situational. So I ask a lot about, where did you change your mind? Right? Give me one example of where you change your mind.
All right, let me give you that question right back at you. When was the last time that you remember changing your mind on something of significance?
See, I think the interesting. So my last one where I changed my mind.
Okay, actually, this is a very, I understand that this is a very, it's one of those questions that suddenly takes you into like the last 10 years. So let me try and sharpen it for you, right? When it comes to managing people, when was the last time that you changed your mind about a belief that you had about how people are seen or managed? Where you had an assumption, like for example, earlier you said, I thought it was about intelligence, but it turned out to be at resilience. Is there a similar mind change that happened for you when it comes to teams or people?
So for me, always it was, and I'm very self-critical as an individual. So I always used to think, if somebody is not successful in Darwinbox because of the skill reason, right, that our enablement has not been the greatest, right? And a lot of times you give a longer rope, try different ways of enablement, etc. But what I realized over time is there are some will issues, right, which is intent issues, etc., which come across as skill issues also, right? It is basically the person not wanting to do it, translating as not capable of it, rather than is just a capability problem, right? So I think that's one part of it. And the other part of it is there are certain inherent skill set slash personalities which the capability cannot be taught to, right? And this could be an introvert trying to do sales or whatever, right? Like, and again, I'm not generalizing there, but there are those things. For me, at least, I've been sharper now in terms of understanding whether this person could be trained on this or not. And then it's a much easier conversation with them on saying, hey, do you want to figure out a new role or outside Darwinbox? Because I don't think there is a path for you to get there, which probably 4 or 5 years back I would never have thought of. Every time I would be like, hey, we've hired right, but we didn't do right, so it didn't work out.
Why do you say, when you say I'm self-critical, what makes you say that? Like, in what forms? Like, I mean, one part you already explained, which is in some senses as a co-founder taking responsibility for, you hire someone after a lot of time and effort and finding and interviewing, and when that person doesn't work out at some point, at some level you feel personally responsible because you're like, we should have spotted this, or maybe we could have done better, right? So that's one aspect. Is there any other aspect of, because this is a recurring theme that comes across with, I think, many founders as well, right? The self-critical nature, which is also at some point crosses over with self-awareness, self-critical nature, self-improvement. I think all of them sort of merge into
I
each
think
other.
more than improvement, Rohan, I think it's the self-criticalness come from also the problem-solving aspect. It is right. Say, okay, this is
Or
me
it was
as
an
an
unsolved or a
it's an
badly
unsolved
solved
thing, right?
problem.
Like, why I've not solved it? Why didn't I solve it? What triggers could have helped me solve this before? What not?
Could I have spotted
Could I
that
have
in
spotted
the
this? Which
interviewing
part?
stage?
Right? Is there another stage of interview that could have helped me do this? What questions could I have asked? So it just becomes that. And I mean, interviewing is a very simple thing of this, right? It could be, I mean, sales is a bloody sport in terms of losing, right? 2 or 3 out of the 4 deals that are there and winning 1 or 2, right? And you see more losses than wins, right? And going through a sales process in your mind, which is 6 to 9 months long, on saying, hey, what could I have done differently? What could the team have done differently? And then fixing for it, fixing for myself, etc. I think it comes from all of that.
Got it. How do you run your typical week? Like at the beginning of a week, do you have like a fixed calendar? Do you run it yourself? Are you one of those people who like prefer having everything calendared, or it's relatively open?
It's relatively open, but my calendar includes, I mean, or my work includes a lot of travel, Rohan. So for me, I enjoy being in front of a customer. So 60 to 70% of the week, I'm in front of a customer. Uh, it helps me two things, right? I think one, of course, it helps build a relationship with the customer. But the bigger thing for me is every conversation actually helps me find something that I can improve within the organization, improve within that context, etc.
This is the point that you said earlier. You said you were sort of like the bridge between sales and
Yeah.
product. So this is that role that you're talking
Is
about.
the role
Because when you're in a sales conversation and something comes up, then you can take it back to product.
Correct.
And then you can have that be fixed. And so you're in some senses the feedback loop.
Correct. So it also gives me leverage, right? I think the being in front of a customer, one, helps me understand the problem at hand, also problem at scale, right? Like, so this could also be a very structural problem that I'm dealing with or that's going to come up. So I keep my week open for those conversations. At least the travel is fixed for me generally, right? I am in a few cities. I mean, we operate in India, Southeast Asia, Middle East, US. Jayant, my co-founder, is moved to the US, so he takes care of the US market. I'm taking care more of the Asia market now, and travel is fixed. Within that travel, a few client meetings are set up, few IPing and set up for myself, and these conversations again I translate back to notes that I send back to my team on saying.
How do you take notes?
Book, paper and pen.
And then what happens?
Then I take a picture and send it either to a BA who's taking care of it or my functional head.
And then what happens with that?
So I think one, I have not mastered it, and this is something.
The reason I'm asking all these questions is because you realize that I'm also trying to figure out, because there is this, on the one hand you have this super sophisticated tools like Obsidian, etc., where people create their second brain on it and everything goes there and it's all graphs and connected and you can attach AI to it and look it up. On the other hand, you have these people who take handwritten notes and they filled books over the years, and I always ask them, but whatever you wrote in those books is in those books. It's not searchable. So I'm always trying to figure out what is the balance.
Yeah, for me, I'm not that much of a stickler for every detail, Rohan. So for me, while I send notes, right, I put one or two comments saying these two things need to be taken care of. So the notes is for the team that is dealing with that customer to solve for. For me, there's one or two things that I'm taking back, right, which becomes top of mind or which is with the functional head that I want to discuss with. So I leave it with them for my catch up with them.
Pen and paper or
pen and paper.
Pen and paper. Yeah. All right. What is it that truly drives you? What motivates you? You're in your 11th year now?
11th year, yeah.
Right? At Darwinbox.
Yeah. See, I think one, there is an excitement that was unstated, stated at different points of time on building a great product company out of India, Rohan. So I think for us, in a way, we were very, very proud of all the successes that pharma has had or services has had, and being in Hyderabad as well. But no, like a market leading product player, right? Market leader in a way. And that's something that we are excited about building, right? HR technology, my market leader, global market leader is something that is definitely something that we're very, very excited about. Personally, I think I am more driven by the problem statements at hand a lot more than like many things that are there for the year, the 3 years or the 5 years, right? Our journey, for example, the next milestone for me is $1 billion of ARR, right? I'm very clear about we're working towards $1 billion of ARR, right? And how quickly we get there is success for us, very materially. But otherwise, that translates for me still to, hey, I'm on the path to becoming number one HR tech player in the world, is how the excitement is. Personal excitement doesn't get driven by those two things on a daily basis. Those personal excitement.
That was my question. That
Yeah.
What is your,
Personal
what
excitement
intrinsically motivates you?
Intrinsically is problem solving. I think the new exciting problems on AI, on new markets, something is not working.
Since you brought up AI, one of the, I think, dominant strands around AI for the last, let's say, 12, 18, 24 months has been how AI disrupts traditional SaaS. Right? That AI is going to be a huge threat to traditional SaaS because pricing models will change. People can spin up smaller versions, or AI itself will change the nature of consumption. So how do you see AI as a threat to traditional SaaS? I know you folks have AI in your own products embedded, but from a problem solving lens, how do you see the intersection of AI into SaaS?
See, I think the AI will change the interfaces of how you use SaaS, Rohan, right? If I have to put it very, very short.
It'll become conversational?
It'll be conversational. It'll be in one format which probably we don't even know today, right? It'll be voice, it'll be conversational, whatever that is. But fundamentally, systems of
it's not like a GUI is what you're largely saying.
I'm not saying GUI. It's an interaction. Way you interact with the systems will change, right? Now that interaction point could be other systems. It could be an interface. It could be a format which is voice or etc. It could be any of those things. But the context or the data is coming from the same set of systems. Now, because of the interface changing, will there be a pricing pressure? Will there be an advantage? Is something that we don't know today. But fundamentally, you need the context of these transactions, of this data, to be relevant for any answer you're giving, right? If you think of it as an answer engine, any answer is coming from a certain set of data and a certain set of context of the organization. Now that organization data and context comes from a system of record, right? We as a HR system are a system of record. So systems of record will not go away. How you interact with them will change fundamentally, and what that impact will be on ways of working, on pricing, etc., we still don't know.
Got it.
Right? The last set of companies to be disrupted will be actually enterprises, because again, going back and tying the thread to, they won't take that risk of right disrupting something that's working, etc. It will be the last ones to be disrupted. I think by then we'll figure out, at least for us, right, we're doing a lot of POCs with a lot of enterprise customers on different agents that we built. Our ability to enter the market, unless we are sleeping on saying AI doesn't exist,
Got it.
I think most systems of record will be fine, because as long as they're building continuously and testing it with their customers, because one, they have access, two, they have data, they have the best set of environment to experiment.
Got it. What are some of the most ambitious imaginations of what HR apps or systems can be if you're thinking about, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years, which obviously includes AI driven, agentic driven? Because we started this conversation by saying the way HRMS, HR tech came about was largely as, in some senses, I need a place where I can see when people joined, when they took leave. It was in some senses very snapshot driven, where so it's like system of record, right? Like you rightly said, no one really was incentivized to do employees want to use it, because the point was, look, if somebody wants to take leave, they'll use it. If they don't want leave, they won't use it. Doesn't matter. But of course, during this time, we've also gone through the phase where organizations now realize that people and their experiences and how they feel in an organization is very important. So if you kind of take that people can be empowered by the software that they're using in an organization, and if you bring in AI, agentic AI, etc. into that, what are some of the most, I think, imaginative ways where we might see HR tech working over a 3 to 5 year period?
See, one of the unique advantage, and this is something that we're betting big on, right? Whether it'll play out is something that we have to see, right? One of the unique advantages that HR system has is twofold, right? So I think one, it is used by everybody in the organization. Two, it understands every role within an organization, right? It's not just a bunch of people in the organization. It is clearly saying, hey, Rohit is taking care of operations or sales, somebody else is taking care of product, somebody else is taking care of finance. So the role architecture and what a role is allowed to do or not allowed to do is very clearly defined in an HR system. Now, combine these two and say, this is the gateway for any organization to use AI. It becomes very powerful, because today the biggest problem of AI, all encompassing AI platforms, is they don't understand role, right? So a person sitting in sales, if he queries for saying, hey, what is my colleague's salary?
And that's one of the biggest risks of a chat
that is
interface.
The biggest chat interface, right? Because there's no great role-based access. But through an HR system, if you can actually translate a role-based access to data and information, which is the biggest impact of AI today. If you think about it, right, the biggest impact of AI is answering questions for you, giving you context, etc., so that you can do your job better. Right? Everything else is just transactions and automation of transactions and better transactions.
Give me some examples of some of these queries that, like, today are really ridiculously hard to perform, but you can imagine a scenario where someone could ask something conversationally and just be empowered with the answer that they get to that.
So I think I mentioned the analytics piece somewhere early on, right? So we've made 3 iterations of analytics so far, right? Which is, okay, the interface is simpler and simpler and simpler so that managers and leaders can drill down data and see it. But the takeoff of it has been very less.
It's one of the, it's like analytics must be one of the things that decision makers and buyers want, but at the same time, it's hardest to get regular usage on, right? Because you're trying to, this probably goes back to something that you said earlier, right? You're trying as a software maker to try and guess what kind of graphs or data or snapshots or dashboards people want.
Correct.
But what people want is always going to run ahead of whatever you can think of, and therefore they're not using it.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where, if you think about it, right, now translate to the Gen AI era,
Right? I can just ask it.
right? You can just ask, say, hey, who are my top performers who are leaving? And this is a HR
Show
problem.
me a graph over the last 2 years of all the people
Yeah.
who left and their average tenure.
Average tenure, etc.
Allow me to link to the
If I
reasons
take
they
the
left.
if I expand it to the gateway example, right, which is this thing, you can say, who are my top 3 people who are leaving? What are the deals that they are running? Top 3 sales guys who are leaving this
So you
quarter.
can do a...
What are the deals they are leaving? Who are the people with not enough deals? Translate it to them.
Got it.
Right? And this exercise involves like 20 people in the process if you think of it today. How do you translate this to saying, over a conversation, an empowered manager or a CEO is doing all of this without having to know what interfaces they have to deal with, where do you have to click, where is
Which
the drill down,
databases are
which
getting
system has
called.
this information.
And the graphing itself can happen on the fly.
Anywhere, on the fly, right? So that's the power of translating this whole experience into a very conversational, context-driven experience. And I think that's where we believe HR has a huge advantage because of these two things that I told you, right? Which is all employees on it and we know the roles. We have a very, very high possibility of translating that to saying this is the interface of entry.
Got it. To go back to, I asked you earlier about motivation, right? And you told me problem solving, right? When you're we spoke about resilience, right? What's the thing that's most helped you? I know it's like resilience is one of those things where if you ask people, everyone says that I want to be resilient, but it's also not one of those things that you can will yourself to be resilient, right? Because it just happens. When you look back at your, let's say, 11-year journey now, 11th year, what are the things with the benefit of hindsight that has helped you become more resilient? What has got you getting up after taking a knock? Like you said, the wall is blocked. You can't just go around it. You can't just throw more intelligence or money at the problem. What are your, I think, observations or learnings from resilience?
I think a lot of attribution I would give to playing sports as a kid, Rohan. Right? I think tennis and
So it comes to energy then, is it?
It's a combination of energy and being comfortable with the idea of losing and going back for it, right? Like going back at it, right? I mean, you don't not go back to a tennis court.
Playing the game for the game's sake.
For the game's sake and enjoying the game. Even though you know you're losing or whatever it is, right? You still go back, right? Like I've not seen a situation where, I've lost continuously 3 times and I say I don't want to play tennis, right? Next day morning.
Have you read this book called The Infinite Game?
Yeah, of course.
So, in some senses that's what they also say. Like, the book also says that it is a game and it has, the rules can be made up as you go along, but you should enjoy. The only people who can continue to play are those who want to play and those who value the play itself.
And I think multiplayer sports or team sports obviously are the best ones for kids to learn, but the single player games actually are in your face in terms of agency and sport, right? Like you're like, loss is yours, win is yours.
Exactly. You can't
collectivize. Going back is
them.
yours, so you can't collectivize it. You can't blame somebody else completely. It's in your face, right? Like the agency part of it is in your face.
Do you still play?
I play very less.
What, tennis?
Tennis only. But because of all the travel, etc., and all those being excuses, right? I could definitely be playing more.
What's the best time for people to give you feedback?
So generally, we do like a 6-month check-in where I have a very clear format where I listen to them in terms of what's gone well, what's not gone well.
So these are what, your direct reports?
These are direct reports or any critical talent in my L2s as well who I spend time with. Right.
So what, everyone gets into a room or it's one-to-one?
One-to-one. One-to-one. And then I talk about what I think in terms of has gone well and not well. And then I take feedback in terms of...
I'm sure you've done this over the years. How have you changed from the first time that you did it? And when people... I'm sure it's like a learning for you as well as your colleagues, because first time they're also wondering how honest can I be, and the first time you're getting critical feedback, you're also thinking, did I make a mistake, etc. To now, what has changed in the way you do these 6-month sessions?
See, I think I set expectations early on, Rohan. So every time, like you said, right? I think the first few times when these conversations happen, they're not very comfortable with giving feedback and how honest they can be. Not, oh, no feedback, nothing is like the usual thing. I generally tell them now very early on, saying, "Hey, I ask for this, right? This is where I do feedback, right? Please come prepared, and I would love to hear something that I can help with, I can do better, I do well, so that I can hold on to those things and what works for you, kind of a thing." So,
Over the years, is there really something interesting that you can share with us? Something that you've got as feedback that's made you reflect and change?
no, I think
Or
everybody.
a recurring theme, whichever.
See, I think one thing which people, I have a very strong poker face, Rohan. So it translates to, hey, you're emotionally not available, right? And I could be better there, right? Like, which is, I probably have those emotions, but I can't emote as well. It's a manufacturing defect, but probably an excuse again. But I think being emotionally available, especially when somebody else is being vulnerable, right, is helpful, right? And I think it just helps them be a lot more vulnerable, or like be a more honest. Unfortunately, because I have a poker face, it doesn't come across while I am completely open, right? People who know me for long enough know this. People who don't know me well enough struggle with it. They're saying, okay, I'm saying something. Is he getting it? Is he looking at it positively, negatively? Does he get what I'm saying?
Have you heard of this concept called a personal user manual? Some people like you have tried
I've
that. Like, I mean, I've tried it. I gave it to a bunch of my colleagues. I don't think anyone read it, etc. But it's that, right? Like a
Yeah, it is
user
that. Yeah,
manual for software.
correct.
You say this is who I am. In that one of the sections will be I have a poker face. Doesn't mean I'm not
Yeah.
listening to, right? Like, but just this is the first thing that came to my mind.
No,
when
no.
you said that.
Actually, I made a manual, but it just felt like
It just doesn't feel natural. I
Yeah.
also made it as well. I don't think many people rely on it. Do you rely on mental models at work? And do you have any favorite mental models that you find yourself, especially around decision making, risk, loss avoidance, opportunities, sunk cost? Like, are there any things that you keep coming back to again and again?
I think two things which I like to do personally is I try and put a number to things in terms of opportunity, business, and even if it's the most random calculation to it, right? Whenever there is a choice to be done, decision to be made, etc.
Can you give me an example?
So, for example, right, do we have to build this module versus protect this module, right? Like engineering
tried-
debt versus roadmap choices, right? Engineering debt versus this module, etc. Or this person versus this person for the next role. And a lot of times, the emotional part of it, the number of escalations, the loudest voice in the room, right, almost cloud the judgment. So when there is a choice to be made, I try and put a number to it. Now you can come and debate the number to me, which obviously gives me better clarity.
Got it.
But I try and put a number to saying this is X million dollars or X number of hours, whatever is that number. I try to make something objective around it, so that works. Of course, the other mental model is around wherever there is a revolving door or a reverse door,
two-way door or
two-way
one-way
door or
door.
one-way door. I'm clear about those things. That
Are there any one-way doors that you've, like, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you entered the US market, 18 months ago or something like
Yeah,
24
24
months,
months
right?
ago.
Like, so it took a lot of time, right, for you? I
Yeah,
mean, like, that would have been what, your 9th year
Yeah,
of
eighth year
operation,
of
right? So you folks really waited.
yeah.
Why didn't you
See, I
go
think
to the US earlier?
we always wanted to be a global platform, Rohan. So I think the big choice we made is in 2019, when the choice was between going to Southeast Asia, Middle East versus going to the US. And the way we thought about it at that point of time is something that we're doing in India, which is to do with the market structure, right? A lot of systems going from on-prem to cloud. SAP, Oracle being the incumbents, right? So our loyal competition, I keep calling them, right? And the best practice not fitting
Or those are more applicable in these markets?
in these markets was how we made the choice of Southeast Asia versus a US or a Europe.
So they're most similar to India.
They're similar to India in terms of a market
Got it.
construct, right? So a lot of on-prem to cloud movement, same competition in the enterprise space, most of the local players playing in the SME space, etc. So it became that choice, right? But eventually we knew we had to go into the US.
Because it's the largest
It
market.
is the largest market, right? And a lot of decision making for the rest of the world, because of them being headquarters, etc., also happens in the US. So, I mean, there was no doubt we had to do it. When do we do it was always a debate. And I think a combination of three things, right? I think one, we got onto the Gartner Magic Quadrant because we were eliminated from an RFP because we were not on the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Like
That was the Mohandas Pai of late stage.
that is the Mohandas
If
Pai of late
Mohandas
stage.
Pai gave you
And
the
it
early
is not funny
validation.
how painful we were for them, because they were like, if you're not in the US, you don't get to play.
Oh, so it's like a chicken and egg.
It's a chicken and
Oh,
egg,
so
right?
first
Like,
you
so
have to
yeah,
enter,
yeah. So
but to
we said
enter
no,
you need to be
yeah.
on the quadrant.
And we were adamant saying, hey, we are winning against an SAP, Oracle, Workday, many places of the world. You put them in the leader quadrant, right? Why can't we? Why can't we? Why can't we? They gave in, and then they saw the product, and then they liked it, and then this thing. So Gartner Magic Quadrant happened. The valuation came in, which means we had some money to try a market, or I mean, it can't be a try, right? We have to, like, we can't keep doing back and forth,
Got
right?
it.
We have to, it's one way door in a way if you want to be a global
Yeah.
platform. And the third thing for us was Microsoft also invested, which also added some marketing air cover, along with the idea that their network was also useful and all of that in that part of the world. A combination of these three felt like that is the right time to do it. Otherwise, we were growing at a good rate. So in our head, it was like, hey, we are doing this for the long, I mean, next 10 years or 20 years or whatever. Why can't we do it when we see the right time and all of that? It's just the timing happened like that.
Got it. How do you learn?
So for me, I think I learn a lot more from context of other sectors and other conversations. And so while I do a little bit of SaaS learning, I'm in SaaS boomies and SaaSters, etc., just to get a sense of it. I really enjoy reading and listening to podcasts, etc., which are completely off, right? And this is to do with sectors which I'm not even a part of, and that could be business, right? Like, I mean, business wars is something I like, history is something I like, right? Some art and movies and something I like. So maybe that keeps me active, just to, I mean, you find a confluence of how, let's say, a smaller player went against an incumbent in a very different sector, gives you a certain set of ideas. Of course, I keep abreast of what is happening in SaaS, but yeah, it's books and podcasts.
Books and podcasts, okay. Do you have any recommendations of even a single interesting book from recent times that you've read?
I'm
that you
reading
really like?
Apple in China. There's a book called Apple in China, which
Is it a newer one?
it's a very new one. It's about how Apple trained China and then China, right?
Obviously,
did
like,
the
yeah,
opposite.
yeah.
So I think that I
They
like.
might as well be Tesla in
Yeah.
China,
Or whatever. Yeah, all of
Mercedes in
those.
China, BMW in China.
But I mean, for a very dry topic, it's written very well. So that's something I'm enjoying. I'm actually 3/4 into that book.
Is there a book that... Do you gift books?
Yes.
What is your favorite, or what are your favorite
So my
gifting
favorite
books?
book that I gift is Lessons from History, Will and Ariel Durant, and I find it fascinating how...
Are you a history buff?
I'm a history buff, and it's fascinating how the themes of history recur, and it's so well captured in that book. So that's my default. Of course, I give out Sapiens, and I give out high output thinking, management, right? So I give that out.
Got it. Is there anything that you're paranoid about?
I think the number of variables is something that troubles me slightly, right? Like, I mean, just so
What is
many
that?
moving parts.
Decision overload, context overload?
It's the unknowns. It's the blind spots when you are across the world in so many locations and so many people, etc. Is that subtle paranoia? Otherwise, like, the decision part of it is clear, right? Like, at least I have a priority mode on where teams are taking care of some things and some things only come to me and some things I'm taking care of. As long as I'm in front of a customer and they're not thrashing me, I'm like, okay, we're
world is
doing
all
something
right.
fine. They're okay, right? Like, and I'm very, very paranoid about that whole thing that I heard from customers before I started the company, saying "aur kaun hai," or like saying, "Oh, right, Darwinbox is just about okay." Right, so I'm very, very
So
paranoid about the fact that I don't
somebody
become an
else
SAP
who's
or
the
an
next
Oracle.
Darwinbox.
Yeah.
Got it.
And more from the customer side. I'm not thinking about the product that will come and replace us. But I really don't like how they spoke about the SAPs, Oracles, Workdays. I don't want them to speak about Darwinbox like that.
Interesting. So do you do anything differently so that doesn't happen, or that you're able to catch that?
No, see, I think there are...
I'm guessing you do NPS surveys and
all of
that
those
kind
things.
of
I think
stuff.
we do all the standard stuff. I think wherever and as much as possible, is something that I encourage all my team members to be in front of customers as much as possible. Whether you're in engineering, whether you're in design, whether you're in product, whether you're in CS and implementation, of course, are there in front of a customer. Because for me, whatever information is coming in is something that is valuable. And now I hope, for example, with AI, if you are able to record a lot of calls and all, right, like Teams calls, which are all transcripted, it gives me better sense, is what I hope for.
Got it. What's your personal usage of AI like? What tools do you use?
So I'm on Claude and ChatGPT. Those are the two I use. Images, sometimes I use Gemini.
What are your, as a
More,
co-founder?
I think.
I'm assuming research is one.
Yeah,
What else?
research, product research, or some market research that I do. General search queries, I definitely do. Categories of products, specifically in AI, I ask AI itself. I also like to build a few stuff, right? Like I have a bunch of small apps that I use, like a journaling app that I used to pay for and use, which I built on my own. So things like that I've done, but that's about it. But I keep enough agents running which give me information that I used to go and search at a point of time as a summary every week.
What does that mean?
So like there are things that I'm interested in, right?
Is it the equivalent of in the old Google search days?
Trends.
You would have set up these alerts.
Correct, alerts. So I used to have alerts also very actively. Now I made it more agentic and more summarized.
Got it. Interesting. What are weekends like for you?
So I work on Saturdays till about 3 o'clock, Rohan. So that's my, I think, interviewing / do internal stuff time.
Got it.
Then from 4 onwards, I'm with my friends, right? Whether that is, I have different bunch of friends from Hyderabad. And born and brought up in a city, I always has that advantage, right? School friends and wide variety of friends. So I'm with my friends, either having a coffee or a beer or whatever that is in the evening. Sunday is all with my kids.
Got it. Your kids are 9 and 3.
9 and 3. I have 2 girls, 9 and 3. So mostly with them. Either playing something with them or teaching them something, or it's just any random, like, or just lazing with them. So whatever it is, but Sunday I try and be fully off from work.
You said earlier that you're not one of those deep mode people. So do you have like any kind of a focus mode, or like, do you have like switch off, be in a room, alone time, read a book, listen to music, something like that?
No, it just flows through like everywhere.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your life?
7.
All right. Doing what makes you lose sense of all time?
I think sport and kids. Those two will be, I think sport more, unless like I'm aging, which is where I get a sense of time that I'm tired. But otherwise I can keep playing.
Is there a morning of the week that you look forward to the most?
Saturday.
You look forward to Saturday morning. Why? Because of the second half or because of the first half?
First half, actually. Because first half gives me time to think and time to go through priorities, time to do what I want to work on, rather than any fire that I have to deal with at that point of time. So I know
in some senses it's like a reflection planning time for yourself.
Correct,
and you look forward to that.
And the whole day is great, right? Like, so then first half is work on your own, and then there's friends in the evening.
I got it. When do you read?
All over. Like I travel almost 2 to 3 weeks a month.
Got it.
So
flights, what is it, physical books or
physical
iPad?
Books, always physical books. So flights, on the flight to Bangalore, I was reading Apple in China, right? Flights or in hotel rooms in the evenings.
Got it. Is there anything that you've geeked about recently? Like any new hobby or interest?
I think one thing around AI in filmmaking is something that I've been randomly reading about, like going very deep in understanding how music and voice and all of that happens.
Through YouTube or books?
YouTube, ChatGPT itself, read, right? Playing around with tools, etc. I find it very fascinating how filmmaking of the future will look. It's more geeking out, not that I want to do something about it specifically, but it's also that, I mean, Telugu industry, I'm a movie buff as well. And movies are big in Telugu land.
Yeah.
So it's just natural rub off, I think. Like I see a lot of it. So I see, what can happen here, what can happen there.
Got it. If you were locked in a room for 24 hours without any internet, what would you do?
No book also.
You can read books.
I can read books. Yeah.
Books?
Books.
Most of the times when you're eating out, what do you end up ordering?
If in Hyderabad, biryani.
That's actually, I should have guessed that, right? Like,
Yeah.
how old are you?
I am 40. Just turned 40.
Has parenting taught you anything about yourself?
I think a lot of layers of what I am is conditioned is what I learned. Not specifically about myself, but like from how kids learn or how kids form personalities and learn was something very fascinating that I've seen with my elder one and younger one and the difference between both, etc.
I didn't still understand
So,
that.
so for example, right, like how apparently the only fear when a person is or a baby is born is falling down. Every other fear is created. And how those fears get created is something that I've just been observing, right? You can't control it because you just live in a society, right? Like it comes from anywhere.
Very frustrating as a parent.
It's
because you're
frustrating as a
also
parent,
afraid.
but
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like, so for me, I think at least I've gotten comfortable with the idea that, okay, the struggle is better when it's earlier rather than later in life. So it's okay, right? Like, I mean, all of us went through some struggles as this thing. You don't have to overprotect against it is something that I'm now more comfortable with the idea. Initially, I was like, oh, damn it. Like, why are you adding fear? Why are you adding fear? Like, I would have loved for them to be fearless, right?
Rohit, thank you so much for this wonderful chat. It was great talking to you.
Thanks so much, Rohan. I figured so many things I have never explored. You started asking me. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. If you've been a long-time listener to this podcast and are glad we're back, do tell the world by sharing this episode with everyone you think will find it valuable. Produced by Udantika Kashyap and mixed and mastered by the wonderful Rajiv CN, our resident sound engineer. This is me, Rohin Dharmakumar, signing off. We'll be back soon with another episode.